Hello and welcome to the BSB80320 Graduate Diploma of Strategic Leadership Student Information session. With me today, I have Chief Academic Officer Iona McKimmie. Iona, welcome.
Thanks, James. Great to be here.
Yes, and what a great course we are talking about today. So for those who are tuning in, give you a bit of insight into what we'll be looking at. Certainly, first and foremost, a bit of background on the course itself. We'll be diving into the course outline, the units that are included as part of this particular qualification. We'll be looking at the learning materials, also be looking at assessments and of course measure education and the support that you're afforded as a student throughout your time with us. So jumping right into it, course outline. Iona, I'm going to hand on over you to talk to us about a little bit about the background of the course.
Thanks, James. So the BSB80320 Graduate Diploma of Strategic Leadership is delivered wholly online with virtual classes, and it is actually delivered over 12 months. Having said that, part-time enrolment is available for students on request, and we'll talk about that a bit more later in the session. So the course is actually an advanced level qualification, and it's really for individuals that are wanting to develop those core management competencies around strategic management and strategy and strategic management and change management and transformational opportunities that we experience in our day-to-day working lives in more senior roles in organisations. So the qualification has a real focus, as I said, on strategy, transformation, leading change, and that strategic planning, which really falls into a number of areas of operations. So we look at collaboration and partnerships, we look at ethics from a corporate perspective, but also from a global perspective in a business context. More and more our business world, or the world that our businesses that we work for or that we own, operate on a global market. So we actually look at ethics not just from a local and internal perspective, but also from the perspective of how our organisation operates in that wider market context. We look at digital strategy for an organisation, which is incredibly important as we move more and more to remote working, and as our world of work and the things we do in our world of work changes and evolves. Our digital strategy is incredibly important. But the other thing that we also look at in this course is diversity and inclusion. Again, our world of work is changing, and what does diversity really mean? What does culture really mean for an organisation? So we ask ourselves these questions and we explore those things as well.
Excellent. Now, certainly with a high level look at the I suppose key units of competency that the course covers. I mean, there's clear that there's a real emphasis, I think, not just on the leadership aspect, but particularly how leadership is going to apply in a modern and future context. And I think really takes into account, I think, what are some of the key requirements in managing a team or leading an organisation in this day and age, and what's the expectation going to be in the future, particularly as we know the world of work is constantly changing, and it really does feel at the moment that it's accelerating, perhaps sort of more than it really has ever done in the past. Now, with that in mind, let's do a bit of a deep dive into the units themselves. Now, being a graduate diploma, we're looking at 8 units of study, and that's over a 12-month period ordinarily. So take us through those units, Iona.
So, as I mentioned before, the course is really about strategy and about managing strategy and implementing and supporting strategy and changes in organisational strategy across all aspects of an organisation. So we look at strategic transformation and what that really means. We look at about how we go about planning strategic processes and how we actually look and how we actually go about implementing change in an organisation. Of course, relationships and partnerships are incredibly important, both internally and externally. So we look at how we develop and cultivate those relationships and partnerships. Innovation is part of change. So when we've identified that we need to change and we need to evolve and our organisation needs to be strategic in a certain way, that in turn triggers the change management conversation, but it also triggers the innovation conversation and exploration. Um, excuse me. Often our organisations are quite, excuse me, are quite um, um, individual in the way that they go about what they go about on a day-to-day operations perspective, from a day-to-day operations perspective, for example. So innovation and how we utilize um, digital advancement and how we look at our digital strategy, and we become innovative, and we actually make change and transform in a positive way that actually helps to increase the capacity and capability of our organisation, but it also leads into a range of other contexts within our organisation as well. So we look at leading and influencing ethical practice, and I mentioned ethics just before, and how the conversation about ethics that we have when we're looking at strategy and strategic transformation um, is about the organisation as a whole, as well as about its individual operations and aspirations and expectations. So we also look at leading and research and design projects. So as we go through that strategic transformation process, and we're in those leadership and management roles in an organisation, often we need to take a concept, we need to develop the concept, we need to research as much as we can. We need to look at it from a strategic perspective, because change, of course, is good for an organisation, and it's fairly well known that organisations actually go through an evolutionary cycle over 5 to 8 years, where without change and without strategic thinking, that an organisation's services or products can become redundant in its market. So we're always looking and strategizing about how we can remain constant, and how we can actually remain relevant. And so we look at applied research, and we look at design projects, because each part of our process with transformation and strategic transformation always involves an aspect of designing a new process, designing a new system, designing a tool, and thinking innovatively. So when we bring all of the units together, what we've actually done is we explore the strategic planning process from the time that we have that gestational idea through to implementation, and then further past that, we look at the implication of what that transformation is going to have in our market and what it means to our organisation.
Excellent. So really the course, I think, sort of delves into a lot of those high level and sort of critical thinking aspects, where sort of step back, look at an organisation, identify opportunities for improvement, research perhaps what those opportunities are, some of those processes, and then take into account all of those critical functions that are going to come into play when researching a strategy, but also probably even more so implementing that strategy over the short, medium and long term for the organisation. Now, with that said, it is a course that is designed for those perhaps sort of, in middle to senior management and upwards from there. It does come with a number of entry requirements. So take us through what those are, Iona.
So to be able to enter the qualification, students need to, or applicants need to have completed a diploma or advanced diploma in a related field of study, and have 3 years or equivalent full-time workplace experience at a significant level of leadership or management responsibility and or complexity in an organisation. Students that have completed a bachelor degree in a related field of study and 2 years equivalent full-time workplace experience are also able to apply for entry to the qualification. Or for those students that have no formal qualification, if they're able to evidence 5 years of equivalent full-time workplace experience, um, they're also able to apply, and of course, in a relevant area of industry, um, they're also able to apply for entry. We also recommend that students that apply for entry for this course are over 18 years of age. Um, they should have successfully completed Year 12 or or an equivalent, and have an understanding or are willing to gain an understanding of business plan creation and development. Um, the process of strategic transformation and leading an organization strategically um, really requires that entry level experience, as it's identified here, to be able to complete some components of the course.
Excellent. Now, having a look at, of course, some of the relevant occupations or applications for this particular qualification, and by no means is this an exhaustive list. We know that the application of this course varies across numerous different sectors and numerous different roles. But of course, some of the examples are general managers, CEOs, COOs, even project managers and high-level strategic project managers as well. Just to give you, I think, also a little bit of insight into the sort of demand that we're seeing for individuals with these sort of skill sets. I mean, one particular role is that of the business manager, which was reported from SEEK just this year, with an average salary of 105,000, which of course is very good. But I think what's truly exciting about it is the job growth of 6.1%, which really demonstrates a need for individuals with senior and well-developed understandings of what the business environment means, perhaps even more so what it means to operate strategically and lead strategically in that environment. And then, of course, a job satisfaction out of 4 out of 5, which again is a very, very high number. So, look, I will reiterate, of course, though, these are just some examples of the application, but does certainly go on to demonstrate that there is, in fact, demand out there in industry for those with these skill sets and those who are prepared to take it on. Now, the course is brought to life using a variety of different learning materials. Talk us through those, Iona.
Thanks, James. The students will have access to a range of learning materials, and it does differ from unit to unit. So there is textbooks available in all units of study, as well as learner guides, as well as additional readings, and video available in all units as well. Students also will complete self-directed learning activities and some research tasks. But for example, when we look at cultural diversity, we also look at the cultural diversity tool, and we experience actually developing a cultural diversity strategy with that tool. And there's a number of experiences like that for students in the self-directed learning activities. Regular lectures and tutorials are available to students in all units, and we encourage students to attend those lectures and tutorials. But if they're unable to attend, of course, they're able to watch the recordings later on. Also made available are study guides, PowerPoint presentations, and in some units, we also have podcasts that students are encouraged to listen to, as well as part of their self-directed learning activities. So there is a very broad range of learning materials and learning experiences that we encourage students to actually undertake throughout the course.
Now, very much an extension, I think, of the learning materials themselves are the assessment functions, which in many respects is a great opportunity to put into play and put into practice what it is that you've picked up in working through the course material itself. Talk us through what some of the assessment requirements we would expect of students taking on this course.
So throughout this course, students will come across a range of different assessment tasks. So they may be asked to complete some short answer knowledge questions or long answer knowledge questions. Excuse me. There are a number of units that actually have projects in them, and the project tasks are made up of, for example, a research task, maybe write a case study, or respond to a case study or a scenario. Create presentations about, for example, the collaboration process that you may have put in place internally to share a strategic change in an organisation, just as one small example. There is also essay tasks in some of the units as well, and of course for the research unit there is a research project to complete. So please excuse me. Students will commonly come across 2 or 3 of the different types of assessment tasks. It would be very rare for all of these tasks to be included in one assessment. So here at Mentor Education, we actually consider assessment to be an extension of learning, and it's where what a student's experienced and the students' learning and learning experiences come together, and students are able to actually complete, for example, a project that allows the student to actually demonstrate to us all of their learning, and often in their own context as well. So we encourage students where possible, if they are in a workplace, to actually utilise their experiences in their workplace, and so they can create, if you like, responses to some challenges that they have as part of their assessment process.
Excellent. Now, what I thought I'd do is just briefly talk about the online learning experience and, of course, what are some of the key requirements to take on this course. So really, in simple terms, key requirements include access to a strong and reliable internet connection, a laptop or desktop computer, and a browser on that laptop or desktop computer. So Chrome, Firefox, Mac equivalent, whatever it is that you choose to use will be absolutely fine. And then through that browser, you'll be able to access our student portal and online learning management system. And inside there, you'll find anything and everything that you need in order to complete the course. So that's all of your learning materials, links to external resources, and of course, where you're all able to download all of your assessment functions there as well. Another key element of the online learning experience, which we made mention earlier on, is that of the online classroom-based virtual tutorials, which is a really, really great opportunity to log in regularly to a live tutorial with your educator, but also with your cohort of current students as well. So it's a great opportunity, of course, to develop a deeper understanding of the course material that you're going through, have an opportunity to interact live with your educator, and really in many respects workshop a lot of the ideas and concepts that come through in the learning material, and subsequently develop a really, really deep understanding, and perhaps even explore some of the applications. And it could be in your workplace or even the workplace of other students who are inside the course with you. So certainly from an educational point of view, the online classroom virtual tutorials are great. Another great benefit of them, of course, is that ability to interact with other students inside your class and get different viewpoints, perhaps from different industries, different occupations, as to how some of the concepts, particularly within each of the units, might apply in different scenarios, and really, I think, increase the breadth of your understanding when it comes to certain things. And finally, that ability to develop a professional network. And what's great about this is obviously being in a live environment with other students is you are in a position to start developing your professional network, which can be really beneficial now, but also in the future. So, and we know certainly in many educational institutions, the relationships that students develop carry on with them throughout their professional lives. And again, provides a really, really good opportunity to do that. So really, in summary, the online learning experience: strong internet connection, access to laptop or desktop computer, a browser on your computer, and that willingness to jump on board, engage and learn. Now, throughout the duration of the course, really from the very beginning, perhaps even before you start the course, you're exposed to a whole range of different support functions at Mentor Education. And it really starts with our educational advice team, who will take the time to speak with you about what it is that you're currently doing, perhaps what your future goals are career-wise, what some of your aspirations are, and then use that information to work with you and identify what's going to be the most appropriate course for you from there. And in this case, it may very well be the Graduate Diploma of Strategic Leadership. From there, once you're enrolled, you're linked in directly with our team of student support officers who will help you with a whole range of things, from onboarding you onto the learning management system, troubleshooting, setting up appointments with our education team, or just about anything and everything else that's got to do with your enrolment. And then finally, having access to the education team is arguably probably one of the most important pillars of support that you'll have access to throughout the duration of the course. Now, Iona, I'll hand on back to you to talk to us about the education team and, of course, some of the functions that they offer.
Certainly, James. Students, of course, have access to the education team and their educators, tutors, and assessors for this course in a range of different ways. So students are able to actually call the 1300 number that we see here on the screen and ask to speak with an educator. Or alternately, they're able to email in and make a booking to have some time set aside that is just really for the student and the educator to have a longer conversation. We encourage all students at all times that study with us here at Mentor Education to shout out and contact us regularly, so we can ensure that our students have an adequate amount of support to be able to complete their course. Other supports that are available, of course, are email. Students are able to actually email service@mentor.edu.au and request assistance from their educator that way. But also available to students in this course is the tutorial sessions as well as the subject lectures, where students are able to log in and access their and have access to their educator each fortnight, and actually join in the study support forum as well. So there's a very broad range of supports there, where students have direct access to educators. Of course, we have other supports that are available for students as well. They're able to request course extensions, and arrange and maybe even make an appointment with the student support team for an orientation session to the learning management system when they start studying. So the other thing here is here at Mentor is we do understand life happens. We do understand that sometimes it is difficult because of life events to continue study, or you might need to take a break from study, and we very, very much encourage our students to just shout out. There is always the opportunity for students to be able to suspend their studies, or we can work with students to find some other solution so they can continue with their study.
Excellent. Now, I've also put together a series of questions, Iona, that we often get asked by students when they're considering a course with us. And the first one is, can I get government funding? And the short answer to that is no. So all of our courses are self-funded by students themselves, but also in some cases by their employers. So if that's an option too, we can certainly make invoicing and stuff like that available to facilitate that payment. But that said, the other options that we've got as well is payment plans, and we do have options available for students who perhaps aren't able to afford the initial enrolment fee all the way up front. And of course, if that's of interest to you, what I recommend you do is speak to the education advice team, and they can go through all the different options that are available to you and of course manage that process. You can start at just about any time. So what we like to say is if you can get enrolment into us, which is done securely via an online enrolment portal, we can have you up and running usually within a 24-hour period. Anything and everything is included with the course fees. So there's no additional textbooks to purchase, no additional fees for assessments or anything like that. Anything and everything that you need to complete the qualification is included in the enrolment fee. The course is nationally recognised in all states and territories around Australia. And yes, there are a series of prerequisites, which we went through earlier on. So again, if you've got any questions about the prerequisites, or you're not sure if your work experience is going to apply, or perhaps study that you've done in the past will be applicable, contact our education advice team, ask them some questions. They're there to help, and they'd love to guide you on that journey. And how long do people usually take to finish? Usually 12 months is the time frame that you would like to work towards there. Just quickly, a little bit of background on us here at Mentor. We've been in the online training space, focusing in financial services, business, accounting and project management since 2003. In that time, we've had over 20,000 graduates. And one thing that we're really, really focused on is learner outcomes. And I think certainly when we get feedback on what our student and learner outcomes are each and every year, it sort of demonstrates where we put our energy and what's important to us as an organisation, particularly as we like to see it as a bit of a partnership, I think, in working with our students and then really kind of, working towards achieving that goal together. And it could be career-wise, academic-wise, whatever it may be. So with that in mind, I'm going to talk to us about some of the numbers we've got up here in front of us.
Thanks, James. So what we see here on screen is the student outcomes from the National Centre for Vocational Education and Research VET Students Outcomes Survey that is done every year. So in 2020, 92% of our graduates were employed or enrolled in further study after training. 90.2% of our students were actually satisfied with their assessment, and 86.5% of our students would recommend Mentor as their training provider. And the most important feedback of all is that 91.6% of our students were satisfied with the overall quality of training that they received. What we see here on the screen really exemplifies the level of support that we provide to our students here at Mentor Education. And we're very, very proud to achieve this kind of feedback from our students.
Now, finally, before we wrap up today, if you'd like more information on what we've talked about, head on over to the website. And so mentor.edu.au and visit the BSB80320 Graduate Diploma of Strategic Leadership course page. And there you will get access to anything and everything we talked about today, plus more. And it's all made available in the course guide, of course, which you can download. There's also an ability to submit a direct inquiry to the team, and they, of course, will get back to you. Otherwise, email us direct. So email us at courseconsultant@mentor.edu.au. If you've got any questions, anything like that, send them straight through, and a member of our education advice team, of course, will get right back to you. Otherwise, give us a call, 1300 306 146. That's between 9 and 5, Monday to Friday, Melbourne and Sydney time. And of course, our team will be able to answer those questions there. And then finally, if none of those options work, again, jump onto the web page, and we've got a live instant messaging chat function, of course, which you'll be able to interact directly with our education advice team in real time. And again, between 9 and 5, Monday to Friday. Iona, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much, James, and I look forward to seeing everybody in tutorials.
Excellent, and thank you to everybody who's tuned in. As always, take an opportunity to excite your potential, and we look forward to seeing you as students soon.